Welcome back to the 2017 Canadian Lawn Bowling Championships. I'm Jake Shuknick, joined by Daryl Fitzgerald this morning. How are you doing, Daryl?
I'm doing pretty good. Good morning, everybody.
Our match today is women's triples. We have Nova Scotia B against Saskatchewan.
So Nova Scotia B, ladies triples is Anne McDonald, Ruth Bowman, and Vicky Balcom. And for Saskatchewan, I'll get you those names in a second. We have Carolyn Jones, Sydney Boyd, and Lori DeBrony.
And again, we might be having some technical issues with our internet here, so bear with us if anything conks out or goes wrong.
We are working hard to bring you a quality stream, so we're doing everything in our power to make it work. Got a great opening bowl there.
And I believe... Bear with us while we try to figure out the switchers. Yeah. Just working on the different type of transitions here so we can find one that works a little better. Well, that might be the best we're going to go with then. And we are on Facebook and Twitter, so reach out to us on Facebook at BCB Official and on Twitter at BCB Bowls.
We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to chat with you, so please contact us and ask your questions, make your comments, and we'll make this a really interactive stream.
And you can find Daryl on Twitter at Canadian Bowler.
Always happy to chat. You'll definitely get an answer within the next 5 to 10 business days.
Beautiful morning here at the Juan de Fuca Lawn Bowling Club in Victoria, British Columbia. This is the first time I've ever been to Victoria, so I'm pretty pumped to be here. Now, these two women's teams have struggled so far the first couple days. I think Nova Scotia is still looking to get on the win column board, while Saskatchewan has 1 win under their belt. But only 2 days have been in the books, so this is round number 5. This is, I suppose, officially the halfway point.
This game can make a big difference for either team, so hopefully we'll get a good game out of this. Something fun to watch. Oh, we got an encroaching player on the green. Sometimes you don't realize how wide your rink is, and it's not really that wide if you want to walk down there. So you got to be careful where you're going to meander after you roll your bowl.
Mm-hmm. Now, after watching a couple other games on this rink, as we've been on A7 in the morning and A1 in the afternoon the other direction, Ivo and I have noticed earlier that hand that she's playing right now, when you play such a long length, it has a very fine line once the green speed picks up. If you get out a little bit, it'll just hang, and if you're a little bit inside the line, it just takes off. So that can be a bit of a tricky hand to play. But since it's first thing in the morning, the greens aren't quite as fast as what they will be later today, so maybe that won't be the case for the first few ends here this morning.
It's quite possible. It'll be interesting to see how they play this rink. We've seen quite a few games on here.
I've heard from some of the players that the different decks have different green speeds. They differ by a second or two here or there, so that can be really challenging to go from one deck to another and having to adjust, 2 seconds from the last game. And of course with lunch there's a half-hour break where the greens just speed up. The sun's really drying them out.
I could see in the afternoon that that players were having quite a difficult time adjusting to the quickness of the green, and as we saw in green 1, like you guys were streaming yesterday, that when you hit a browner patch and a greener patch, there's different speeds.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be careful with how you're playing those as well.
Yeah, that makes it really tricky, especially where the jack is, because if it's in, a brown patch, then it's going to speed up a little bit, but if it's on a greener patch, it'll slow down.
That's right. Well, short here.
Mm-hmm. As always, if you want to check out the standings or results, go to bullscanada.com. Under the Championship tab, you'll find the Canadian Lawn Bowling Championships. Scroll down a little bit and you'll be able to see player list, draw, results, standings. You can also check out where each player is from, like what their home club is.
There's a lot of neat information on there that you can take a look at. It looks like she's playing a little bit of weight, hoping to make something move, but got really narrow on that hand.
Mm-hmm.
So now we got 2 bulls way out in front.
We saw some of these players last week when we were in Nova Scotia for the Junior Championships. I remember Anne McDonald was on site there helping out, I believe, with ladies in the kitchen and selling tickets and this, that, and the other. She was an excellent volunteer.
That's right.
And Sydney Boyd from Saskatchewan was actually there competing in the Under 25 event.
That's true too. So I'm sure Sydney's excited. She's had quite a couple weeks playing in 2 majors. So Nova Scotia skip. Finally getting done to the head. Pretty close. Saskatchewan skip just trying to make a little action on that shot bowl. Looks like she's fairly narrow on that hand. We'll see if she has enough weight to hold it. Not quite. That's one for Nova Scotia.
Was it 2?
And 2? No.
Well, we only played one end, yeah.
Yep, there we go. Really good opening bowl there. Just about a foot through the head.
We'll see if Laurie can have an answer here. That looks like a pretty good bowl there.
That is pretty close.
Both these ladies are just going up a little bit inside.
Another really good bowl. Good setup so far from Nova Scotia. Just coming up short.
Now Saskatchewan does have the green decals on their bowls, and Nova Scotia has white, as this is a B team.
There's a good back bowl from Laurie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not surprising to see Sydney Boyd here at the Canadians. Saskatchewan is definitely known for having some really excellent young players that have come up through the juniors. She's obviously one of them, along with we've got John and Mike Batuli, who are a couple of the younger players, and Alex Scott and Grant Wilkie as well, playing in these.
Mm-hmm.
As well as Jordan, of course.
Yeah,
Can't forget
that's right.
Jordan.
That's right.
So Saskatchewan definitely has quite a bright future ahead of them with their 20-year-olds and under.
Yeah, they have a pretty good junior program out there. They always seem to have a couple youngsters that rise to the top pretty quickly. And they have no shortage of international experience out in Saskatchewan either. Their manager this year is Keith Roney. He's just sitting down behind the green here now to spectate and watch these girls play.
Yeah, he's been here a couple times.
Yeah, once or twice. He's has plenty of international experience, but he's been to the majors more times than I can count. Really great job what he does. I remember a few years back he played with Brandon and Carter Watson.
And that's right. And there's two other young players that they're not at the majors this year, but they have been. And I mean, that's just more kudos to Saskatchewan for the development of their younger players.
Mm-hmm. That is such a boost at a young age to be playing at the majors. So that's only going to help your development.
Sydney trying this ditch side again, but coming up fairly short on that last bowl of hers.
Mm-hmm. She has that interesting new color from Henselay, where it's a different color on the running surface of the bowl.
Yeah, I have a set myself. She plays with Tigers, and so do I. I believe that's called the Radar Slice.
The Radar Slice?
I believe that's the name that they
Okay.
gave it, because of the radar colored green that's on there and the black that's in the middle. But yeah, they've gone with the tricolor, except instead of having it sort of split right down the middle, it's on the running surface in the two sides, which is I find quite nice and quite a different change.
Yeah, it's definitely unique.
Her bowls definitely stand out in this head, considering the majority are black bowls.
Yep, it's only the Saskatchewan skip Carolyn Jones that has another set of colored bowls. She's using red.
But yeah, as I look out across all the greens here, there's every color imaginable that you'd want, from purple to orange to red to green and blue. It's all over the map. Everybody has their favorite.
I'm looking over on rink 3, and I think everybody there is using either traditional black or brown on rink D, the men's pairs between Ontario and BCA. That's one of the very few rinks where there's not a single colored bowl.
That's true.
Seems to stand out just by not standing out.
Mm-hmm. Black is becoming a little more unique than it used to be. Carolyn just coming really narrow on that ditch that might have rolled out of bounds. Yeah.
quite a few back bowls here. There's only 4 bowls short of the jack, one of them within a foot.
Another deep bowl.
Really curious where some of these players play traditionally back home on their home greens. As we streamed one of the games yesterday with New Brunswick, it looked pretty obvious that New Brunswick plays on heavier greens, as they really struggled to find their weight, and they were through the head on majority of their bowls. So seeing so many back bowls here, I'm curious if Nova Scotia and Saskatchewan play on heavier greens based on all these back bowls, or if maybe the greens are just a little bit quicker today and they're just all reaching.
That's true. And based on what you play back home, you kind of fall back into your normal routine every once in a while, and you drop a short bowl or you drop a long bowl, depending if you're going on faster or shorter. It's that muscle memory and that all that practice and play that you have on those greens that kind of can make you forget that, oh, I'm not on my home greens, I'm actually somewhere else playing on faster. But excellent final bowl there from Carolyn Jones. Looks like she may have snuck a 2 or a 3. Saskatchewan picks up a 3.
Sorry, bear with us while we're working with tech support here again.
Becky just sneaking by with a deep bowl, just getting around that short bowl out front. Lori just trying to get, I think, inside hers. She might have nailed it right on top. Yep. Got a flush. Might make it a little difficult to play that side.
Mm-hmm.
Got in between, rolled in for shot.
How about that? Just as I feel like that's the commentator's curse here between you, me, and Ivo. Almost every time we say something, the bowler goes and proves us wrong. Whether we're saying they're super consistent and come up way short, or it's going to be tough to play that hand and then they pull off an excellent draw. No matter what we say, it's almost like the bowlers hear us and say, you know what, you're wrong.
Excellent bowl there, trying to get in. Nova Scotia holding 1.
Falling asleep here at the wheel. We've actually played 2 ends here, so I'll see if I can update that. Not quite as easy to update ends as it is score. Shortcuts for score, but for end it takes a little more work. Big thanks to our sponsors and partners, the Government of Canada through Sport Canada, the Coaching Association of Canada, Kukri, our official clothing supplier, and lawnbowlingmanager.com. One-stop shop for lawn bowling club management.
So you just coming up a little short on that side. It looked like she had fairly good line, just missing the weight. Let's see what Ruth has in store for us here. That was excellent line. 2.5 feet short. That might make it interesting. Now you can get underneath Sydney's bowl and attack that jack if you really wanted to. There's a nice little funnel there with bowls. Yeah, I think that's... Might make it a little tricky, but we'll see what Sydney's going to play here. Just throwing narrow. Like she had to wait, but oh my goodness. Her very, very front bowl, she hammered on it and actually snuck it in for a look at shot. Yeah, Nova Scotia indicating down one, so Sydney just hammered hers in for shot. Nova Scotia just coming a little narrow. Ruth had to wait for it, but didn't quite hit that line. Siep's coming down to play their bowls. See what they can do here. There's a lot of bowls out in front, which can be moved.
John Seitman's tuning in to watch Team Nova Scotia battle it out with Team Saskatchewan. It's cool to see a few of the bowlers that I know competing in their first majors. Sydney Boyd from Saskatchewan and Vicky Balcom from Nova Scotia. Nice to have you with us again, John.
Carolyn coming well short of the head. Just stood Sydney's shot bowl up. It's going to make it really difficult to get rid of it. It's kind of covering that jack pretty well. See if Carolyn has going to play some protection in the back or go right into the head. Hitting her short bowl.
Just around.
I think we got a kick bowl being replaced. That happens. You're trying to jump away of a speeding bowl and you actually jump into another one that's standing right behind you.
Mm-hmm. Just got it square. Needed the inside rub, I think.
Yeah, she had the same line each time, so she kept hammering on that spot. But yeah, just sailing on the outside and through again. Almost identical bowl door last.
That's one for Saskatchewan.
Yep.
Make it 4-1 after 3.
Saskatchewan electing to play it short. Skip was standing really short.
Big thanks to Annie and Davey Matthew for making this show a go. They've been working tirelessly for the past 6 months, probably even longer. They've got a huge crew of volunteers here. There's numerous people wearing the volunteer shirts and helping out with everything from flipping the scoreboard that you can see. There's a scoreboard at the end of each rink and there's a flipper there to do it, as well as lunches and selling raffle tickets. They have the Players Club, so all the players can have coffee and tea in the morning. There's just numerous volunteers here, and they're all doing a great job.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic week so far, and I know everybody's enjoyed it, from players to spectators to umpires and everybody. So, real kudos to the Juan de Fuca Bowling Club. They've done an excellent job.
One thing that we haven't really mentioned yet, either on stream or in any press releases, that we're definitely going to need to do, though, is probably the story of the event here is John and Jennifer McDonald are competing here, and they have a 4-month-old here with them. So Team Alberta has a little bit of a mascot there. There's a 4-month-old baby, and both John and Jennifer are still here competing. They brought along Grandpa to look after the kid while they play, but there's so many bowlers and spectators that are all coming over and wanting to pick up the baby and hold it that it almost don't even really need a babysitter because everybody wants to take a turn.
Sure.
But yeah, just absolutely wonderful to see, and the kid's been really good too. I don't think I've heard him once. He's been quiet the whole time.
Well, that's right. You wouldn't even know the baby is here, but other than the flocking of people towards it because it's so cute. Yeah.
That's right. So big congrats to them. Jennifer is actually on the board of directors for Bowls Canada Boulingrand. And speaking of that, if you do want to be on the board, head on over to our website under opportunities, get involved. There's a web page there that you can see the job description for being on the board. It's a pretty great way to volunteer and give back to the sport. You can find out the inner workings of bowls in Canada and make a difference, have your say over some policy changes and whatnot. It's pretty interesting stuff when you actually see what goes on behind the scenes and some of the high-level decisions that need to be made. And if the board isn't quite right for you, there's numerous committees you can be on as well. There's the officiating committee, the competition committee, marketing committee, high performance committee. And on that same webpage you'll find descriptions for being on the committees as well, and I think we'll be sending out a call for nominations here shortly. So if you don't have as much time to be on the board, you could still maybe find time to be on a committee. It's still tremendously rewarding. You get to work with either me or Anna.
As you know, every aspect of bowls needs your help, so we rely on volunteers. It's a huge aspect of our game and how we actually survive from every level, from club right up to Bowls Canada. So yeah, if you can find a good fit for yourself to help the sport, take advantage of it. It can be a lot of work, but it's definitely really, really rewarding. I know I've enjoyed my time volunteering for different things, and I wouldn't give it up for the world.
It's really quite interesting to see what goes on behind the scenes. I know from working for Bulls Canada here, I've only been there for a year, getting close to a year and a half now, I suppose. Finding out all the things that go on behind the scenes, it is just actually phenomenal, all the little details that you don't see just to make an event happen or to make anything happen Bulls related in Canada. There's so much stuff that goes on, and for things to run flawlessly and smoothly, it takes a lot of work and preparation beforehand, but it can be really rewarding. I know being here today and being at the juniors, it was really great to see that all the hard work is coming off, and the players just absolutely enjoy it and have a good time, and things run smoothly, and it's quite rewarding to see.
That's absolutely true, and being a part of the under-25s and actually being here and just helping out a little bit, I know how much hard work you guys have put into it, and it's nice when everything comes together. Mm-hmm. You don't have to run around as much and stress out about stuff, but again, that's more congrats to all the volunteers here that are making it really, really easy on everybody that's trying to get not only to play in these games, but support the players in these games. And as we've been yammering on, there's quite a head coming coming here. It's a lot of nice tight bowls.
I'm glad we've got the camera off a little bit to the side, as Nova Scotia is just directly behind the head there. But you can still, I think, see the jack and most of the head, since we're on a bit of an angle, which is quite nice here. It's so much nicer to stream pairs and triples, because you can actually see things. Fours is just a bit of a nightmare to try to get the camera at a good angle that you can see the bull coming in as well as the head.
That's right, because Skip standing there might not be an issue, but when you've got six players, the three lead second and vice from both teams just standing in front of the head, sometimes it blocks the entire view.
Mm-hmm.
Carol's looking for a way to convert this head in Saskatchewan's favor. I believe Nova Scotia is currently holding 3. She's putting just a little bit of weight into the head, maybe bump Sydney's up. She caught a good edge of it. No indication of whether that changed the count at all. From the indication, it looks like Nova Scotia is still holding 1, maybe 2. It's quite a call. She's called her to draw right in front of the jack.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a small target. Nova Scotia Skip coming with a lot of weight. By her indication, it looks like she was having a mini heart attack when it was coming through the head. You don't want to disturb that jack and cause yourself any problems. Carolyn might catch the inside edge of this. Caught it flush.
Got it square.
It's interesting. I'm looking at this green, and the majority of teams have elected to wear white shorts and white pants. And I look to my right in the other deck, and the majority of players have chosen to wear black pants and black shorts with a few whites in there.
Yeah, that is interesting. Doesn't really matter as long as your team matches.
I hate white pants.
Yeah, I agree with you. Guaranteed, no matter what I'm eating, or I'll end up sitting in something, and it's just, it doesn't stay white for more than the 2 seconds after I put it on.
That's absolutely right.
I couldn't be happier that we've gotten away from traditionally wearing all whites, white shirt and white pants. I remember growing up as a kid when I was playing in tournaments, I used to wear that and just never lasted long. Didn't work out well for me or anybody else.
No, I'd have to replace shirts constantly.
I think we went through a lot of bleach.
Yeah.
Just loads of whites.
My hands get dirty, and I tend to rub my hands on my legs and the sides of my shirt, so yeah, it was just dirt streaks right all over the place.
Fortunately, none of the provincial colors are actually just white. When I ordered the decals for all the provinces, they all have their unique color, and they all have their own color scheme. I'm not sure how that came about, but every province knows it, and it's been relatively the same ever since. The only slight difference, I think, is recently Ontario was red and black and white for a little while, but that was actually due to a clothing malfunction, I think. They didn't have maroon or burgundy at the time, and so it ended up being red, and they just stuck with it for a few years. But Ontario's colors are actually, I don't know if it's burgundy or maroon. I think it's burgundy.
Burgundy, yeah.
So they recently went back to that again rather than red, which is a good idea because Team Canada is red, white, and black, I guess, on our uniforms.
Yeah. Oh, this looks like quite a big head.
3 there for Nova Scotia. Okay. So that ties things up at 4, if I'm not mistaken.
That's true. It's a good head for Nova Scotia. They set it up quite nicely. Spectators are slowly rolling in here.
Mm-hmm.
Those early morning starts aren't just quite conducive to having a huge crowd present, but as the day goes on, we'll see more and more, and those afternoon games are definitely lots of spectators up and down the sides of the greens.
Absolutely love it when some of the teams finish first and they stick around and watch, and then more teams finish and they stick around and watch. So by the time you get to the last couple of games going on, you've got over 100 players watching on top of spectators, and it gets to be quite the crowd.
Oh, it's really cool to see. Players supporting the players.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's to cheer on your friends, or sometimes it's to see who's going to win, who's going to lose, and where that puts you in the standings.
I remember last year at the majors in Edmonton, I can't remember which province it was. It might have been Nova Scotia, it might have been Alberta, but there was a couple games going on still in the round robin, and whoever their team manager was made sure that every player from that province stuck around and watched to support the team. So I don't know what game it was, might have been women's pairs or something like that, but every other player from that province was sitting on the sidelines cheering them on, and I thought that was absolutely great, because not every province does that. Sometimes as soon as you're done, you head back to the clubhouse or clean up and head home. So that was some really good provincial pride, I thought.
I think that's good to have, right? Everybody needs that support at some point, so if you finish first and you're sticking around, go and cheer your fellow competitors on, especially from your own province, and show them the support that I think you would want if they finish first.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes for a nice game. You know, a whole bunch of cheers and claps and for a good shot.
Ontario triples there in rink 5. Layla Hassan and Crystal Shepherd are getting a little riled up. Thought she had a great shot, but I guess she just missed. Ontario is winning 6-1 in that game over BCA in the women's triples. Looking further on down, Ontario B is down 5-0 against BCA in women's pairs. Rink next door, Manitoba A down 4-2 against BC B. And that's women's triples as well.
Nobody's super close to the jack yet. About a foot and a half away. See if Sydney can draw one in here.
Probably a skip stream here right now, but most of the bowls are all past the jack, and that's definitely what you want when you're a skip. I know that when I skip or play Vice, I absolutely hate it when there's just a minefield out front that you have to navigate through, but when they're all past the jack, if you have a chance to draw in there, it makes it great.
It's nice to see a clear path on the shot that you want, right? Looks like it's one for Nova Scotia holding right now. So you're just scooting by that jack, looking to pick it up, probably. Got Ruth coming in here, hoping to draw one really tight. Her weight's pretty good. Just sliding by. A little narrow. Sydney may have got a little off balance with her delivery there. Took a step to the side, which seems to have caused her to throw it just a little bit wider than she wanted. The sun's starting to come out here. Start to feel it here in the booth.
Yep. Really makes quite the difference here when the sun comes out to when it's in the shade.
Yeah, cold, hot, to cold, to hot.
Yeah, it's been cold and hot flashes all week just about. I've been unsure whether to leave the jacket on, take it off, leave it on, take it off.
Just a little bit wide. Oh, catching an edge and shooting in.
Yeah, just about. Don't know if it was... I think it was Ivo I was talking about this with, but I absolutely despise 3-bowl triples because by the time the skips get to the mat and it's their last bowl, it's just... There's way too many bowls out there, I find. 9 per team, 18 total. That's almost impossible to miss. You can just play 10 feet through the head, you're bound to hit something, you might get a good rub. I feel like it takes a lot of the skill out of the game. You just have to plow through it.
It'll be interesting to see how players adjust to 2-bowl triples next year. Or, sorry, triples is out, but 3-bowl pairs, which will make it a lot clearer.
Mm-hmm.
2-bowl triples is a good game though, and I actually find that's a lot more enjoyable than 3-bowl triples. Got 1 bowl to come. Let's see what Saskatchewan is looking at and what they want to do. Come up the green. Quite a team conference going on here. Trying to decide which shot would be best to play.
I do like seeing that though, getting the whole team involved. Sometimes when just the skip and the vice talk, really feel left out at the lead if you don't actually have a say in the team. And it's great to see the whole team dynamic working together.
Absolutely, nobody should be left out when having a team chat. Even if they don't say anything, they're at least in there hearing what's going on. And if there's something that they decide that kind of doesn't make sense, they can at least say something if they need to, or just say, are you sure?
Now, one thing that I was always told growing up was that if you're the lead, you need to say off the green, out of the head. It's only the vice that can be in there. And I found that as I've played more tournaments, that's definitely not the case, and actually it's kind of ridiculous to not have the lead in the head. It's a team game. You should get your whole team involved, and even in fours, lead in second, you still want to keep them involved and part of the team. So I definitely want them up there with the vice when they're calling ahead.
That's right, and it's a great way to learn, even for new bowlers.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want them standing off in the back feeling left out and whatnot. So when you have new bowlers playing the game, you want them involved. Even if they don't have direct input into what's going on, they can at least learn and understand the game by talking with everybody, listening to the conversations that are going on. And if you are just playing some fun club games, you can try to explain some of the stuff. Like, the reason I'm playing the shot is, there's a couple balls on the side that I can use to my advantage, or this side is blocked off, etc., etc., and they can learn a lot better that way.
So, John Siteman is asking the answer to yesterday's question. As I realized I didn't actually answer it during the game, I waited till the next game and then told him on that broadcast. But the question was, how many umpires are there in Canada? And the correct answer is 260.
That was only 160 off.
Yeah, John had you beat a little bit, but if you're playing, if you go over, then you're out, then
yeah,
by default.
We're playing the Price is Right rules here, John. Sorry. I'll bet $1.
The answer is 260, and I don't have the numbers in front of me anymore. I had those back in the office, but I believe British Columbia actually had the most. Something like 93, 96, something like that. BC was there, and then I think Ontario was not too far behind, but Victoria definitely has, I would say, maybe the most per area. I know Davey Matthews been training a bunch out here, and for just the island, there's probably well over 20.
I'm not surprised, because we've got a lot of umpires here, good qualified umpires, and there's never a shortage. There's been, umpire calls on every deck, and there's no issues. Oh, we got an out of bounds jack here.
Mm-hmm.
For those that might not know, when a jack goes out of bounds or goes into the ditch, when the lead throws it for setting the end, it gets thrown back, and the opposition gets a chance to set the mat and throw their jack. If they happen to miss again out of bounds or in the ditch or too short, it'll get set at the tee, and then the other team can set the mat where they want as well. So.
And that's a question that I get quite frequently, is if both leads throw it in the ditch, does the initial lead get to set the mat where they want? And the answer is yes, they can. So if both the leads throw it in the ditch or out of bounds or what have you, then that first lead can still have the option to move the mat, even though the jack is placed at the 2-meter mark.
It's something that a lot of players don't know. They tend to just stand on the mat and throw their bowl, but I know when I'm leading, and if that happens, and I really hope I don't miff my my jack throw, but if that does happen, I will place the mat exactly where I want, so I get the distance that I was actually aiming for in the first place, whether it's short or long.
Yeah, very rarely have I actually had that happen when I'm playing a game, but on the off chance it does, that both leads throw it in the ditch, no matter what, I pick up the mat and move it, because I don't want to leave the mat exactly where the other lead left it, because that may end up right where, you might fall into their game plan, or might end up exactly where they want and not where you want. So no matter what, I move the mat just to try to throw them off a little bit and not play right into their style.
Oh, and that's exactly it. I tend to tell my leads, I don't care if you want it in a similar spot, you pick up the mat, and even if you move it a couple inches to a foot in one direction or the other, at least move it. So it gives the illusion that you're moving the mat somewhere.
On the topic of throwing jacks out of bounds, I think one thing that I don't know if we've ever really taught or have any sort of background on, but how to throw a jack. Growing up, it was just sort of taught to me from some of the club players, but I don't know if at Bowls Canada we actually have any sort of documents or videos or anything like that that actually shows you how to properly throw a jack, because how you hold the jack is sometimes the only difference between throwing a good jack and a jack out of bounds to the side. A lot of people tend to grip the jack using all their fingers and just grip it tightly, and that tends to not produce an accurate jack throw because it's not really a proper way to hold it. The way I was always taught was you sort of let it rest on your middle finger and you use your ring finger and index finger to sort of guide it a bit. But when you grip it too tightly, it doesn't always produce an accurate roll. So that may actually be one of the next videos that we might need to produce, is how to hold a jack and how to roll a jack to keep it in play. Because as I've seen here this week, there's a tremendous amount of leads that are still struggling to keep a jack in bounds.
And it becomes even more critical when you're playing on faster greens, because that slight touch, or as you said, if you grip it kind of like a baseball or something really hard, you tend to launch it out of your hand, trying to release it all your fingers and off the palm at the same time. So, pushing it that extra foot could throw you in the ditch or throw you off because those faster greens are a little harder to manage. You just want a nice, smooth delivery.
One thing that was talked about yesterday was, if you go on YouTube and you look at the Delivery Doctor, How to Deliver a Bowl, Dan Milligan does a really good job of explaining that the middle part of the running surface of the bowl, the last thing that should touch it is your middle finger. The last part you want to touch is the middle of the bowl, so that way you know it's going to go straight. If you touch the last part is on one of the sides, then it might go off sideways or in a different direction. And I think the same thing needs to apply to the jack. You want to be able to, the last thing that you touch really affects where it's going to go. So if you're gripping it with all of your fingers, you really don't know what the last part of your hand is that's touching the jack, which way it's going to go. If your pinky is the last part that touches it, it might veer off to the right or to the left, or if the last part is just the side of the jack. So you really want to make sure that's the middle to aim it in the direction you want to go.
That's true. Nice ball there from Nova Scotia. Yeah, Sydney just wants to get something in the area, because right now it's just surrounded by Nova Scotia balls. A little energy, she might be able to pound one of her balls up. Not quite. Yeah, throwing a jack and throwing a bowl is, you got the same fundamental principles, where you want to throw it straight. You're not trying to hook the bowl and do something funky with it. You're just throwing it straight out of line. So you're doing the same thing with the jack. You're just throwing it straight out in front of you. But it's quite interesting, those that can't throw a straight jack, it's curious if they can actually throw a straight bowl as well. Right? They're doing something funky, so their line obviously isn't necessarily where they meant to throw it, but they learn to work with it to get the right result.
I know from playing in Ontario, not to call out names, but I'm going to anyway, Malcolm White used to be absolutely horrendous at throwing a jack, so he would, during one tournament, he got down on one knee and just arm straight back and arm straight forward to try to keep it in play. And then Larry McClellan is usually pretty horrific at throwing a jack, so he uses his bowls picker-upper. So he puts the jack on the ground and then just puts his bowls lifter against it and just pushes it straight forward, and that does a relatively good job of keeping it at least in the rink.
They both found ways to
keep it
to adjust, right,
in play. If you have any ideas for the next videos we should come out with, let us know. We've got a third one that is very near final production stages. It's going to be about sponsorship and all the benefits of getting sponsored or being a sponsor for a lawn bowling event, which we're hoping that clubs can go and show to potential sponsors and say, hey, you should be a sponsor and here's why, watch this video. So that's very near the final stages of production, but after that, let us know what you'd like to see Bowls Canada produce. We have a really good working relationship with Hyperactive. They're a video production company that helped us make the first two, and this third one that's coming out. They're absolute pleasures to work with. If you haven't heard of them, go check out Hyperactive. They do a lot of corporate videos with physical health and education and government agencies. Great bunch of guys, though.
Yeah, and the 2 videos they produced so far have been top-notch. I know I've heard a lot of great things about them, and they've had a lot of views and a lot of shares, so that's really excellent to see for our sport especially.
It's really great to see that there's, I think, 44,000 views of the videos on Facebook when there's only, 12,000, 13,000 bowlers in Canada, so we more than tripled the amount of bowlers that we have that are viewing it, so the videos have really gone worldwide, which is phenomenal.
So it looks like Nova Scotia is holding 2, maybe 3. It's a dangerous head for Saskatchewan because they can't push their bowl out and give Nova Scotia any more points.
Yeah, Carolyn's going to have to be very careful here.
But it is a little tricky for Anne to figure out where she's actually going to draw in here, because she doesn't want to push that red bowl Carolyn's up on the left side. Then maybe she's going to come on the right and just try to squeak through that port. But as we know, that side is a little tricky. Don't think she's going to make it.
No, not quite here. Not sure if she was trying to throw a guard.
Oh, maybe. She kind of gave the idea that it's not so bad, but I don't see Carolyn throwing a ton of weight at this.
No, I don't see much of a good result coming from that. I think the best option is to either try to find that port or work on her short bowl there to try to cut them down to just 1, if you can roll it a few turns.
I think that's probably the best option, even if she can catch an edge and just float in there. Cutting down to 1 is definitely a good result.
That is definitely not the bowl she wanted to hit. I don't know if that pushed it enough into the count. Big thanks to Kim the volunteer for herding all the players on the path behind us. We were having this discussion over on the drive over. Our new communications coordinator, Sarah, is relatively new to bowls, so we were teaching her some proper etiquette, such as don't walk behind the green when someone's about to bowl, as it can be a distraction. It is astonishing how many players here don't know that etiquette, don't think of it, don't use it. When someone's on the mat about to roll their bowl, don't move behind the head, because they're really focusing. They might be looking at a target point somewhere, and if you're moving, that's a distraction and might throw them off completely. So proper etiquette is to stand still until they've released their bowl. And I'm just blown away about how many players are just running back and forth behind the greens here while people are trying to play.
Yeah, you sometimes don't see that back home. Like, you're playing in club games and jitneys and some tournaments, and people are just running all over the place, getting water, going to the bathroom, whatever it is. And they just don't think. But you really want to give each player their respect on the mat when they're trying to make a shot. You never know where they're looking to get their line and to set themselves up. So it's just nice and proper etiquette to allow them to release their bowl and then move across the head if you need to. So, oh, we got an umpire call. It's a close measure for 4. This could be another big end for... Well, it is a big end for Nova Scotia, regardless.
Yeah. So they're looking around, trying to maybe kick out which ones are not in the count. Yeah, let's take this one out so George knows exactly which ones to measure. George is saying the same thing, take out all the bowls, so it's only 2. Yeah. That is one thing that most umpires will ask you to do, is clear everything out so there's only 2. One sort of oops there. The bowls they had taken out are now just being all collected by the rake there, so I hope that they remembered exactly how many they've taken out of the count.
Yeah.
Normally, you leave those off to the side in a group, and some people put their towel on it, or you just stand near it so you know, hey, we've taken these 3 out.
Yeah, some people forget.
Yeah, some people do forget, and if there's a controversy, then that would potentially be a dead end. You might have to replay that again just because you can't agree on how many you've taken out of the head.
Having a little laugh there with Saskatchewan players. The lifter was put on the edge, and it was about to tip forward, so the lead put her foot on it, and it almost flung right back and hit her in the face. So that would have been a disaster. And one unique to Bulls with the pusher.
Great to see George is using another umpire here. George is the head of an umpire, and he's done a great job, but that is
4 for Nova
Scotia. But, he was really lining that up. He got directly behind the bowl, and then he had the other umpire who was near the jack said, move your measure a little bit so that we're on a straight angle. So he was making sure that was lined up perfectly, which is great to see the accuracy.
So 6 ends played, 12-4. Nova Scotia stormed out to quite a lead.
Mm-hmm.
Another near miss jack here. Speaking of throwing straight jacks.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Over to our right, Kevin Dusablon's filling up his water bottle. Great to see he's repping a BCB hat. If you're in the area, come on down. We've got a little bit of merchandise left to sell, although yesterday was just tremendous how many people came up and flooded the booth to buy stuff. I think all the volunteers went home with boxes of clothing. I heard one person bought one of everything. So there's select sizes left now after everybody had their first crack at it, but if there's enough demand for it, I wouldn't be surprised if we could place another order and then ship it to you directly if enough people really want to order clothing. But we have hats and visors, t-shirts, sweaters, jackets.
It's all really nice stuff, by the way.
Have a new color of bunny hug, I'm told it's called in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, Saskatchewanians looking. Don't know what that is. You can see Laurie having an issue with that ridge that's out there on ring 7. You get a little too far out, and it's not going to come back for you. So.
That's a pretty good bowl there if it stops.
Yeah, great adjustment from...
Just tickled the jack on its way through.
From throwing one right on that outside ridge to nailing the jack. Skip will be happy about that.
You know what makes me pretty happy to see here is the new jerseys that a lot of the teams are getting. Saskatchewan here, they've got the Bulls Canada logo on their left sleeve. I believe BC does as well, and I can't quite see Alberta does as well. So that kind of makes me happy to see that all the newer jerseys are still putting the Bulls Canada logo on. That's good advertising. Don't know if anybody out there uses Windows 10, but I absolutely despise it. I've had 17 notifications for updates in the past 2 weeks saying update now, and I've had to restart and update I think 15 times already, but there's always a new update every other day. It's just the worst. So I guess Ruth can't see the jack from here. And Anna's putting her foot out, saying it's at my toe.
So she's really quite narrow on that side.
I'm a huge fan of the skip putting their foot out and saying draw to my foot. I find that to be incredibly useful and helpful. Don't need to know everything else, just tell me where you want my bowl. Right at my foot, okay.
Oh, it's keep it simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Line and wait in the spot that you want to go to, and then you can match that up. You don't necessarily need to know what the skip needs you to do or is expecting to happen, but if you actually make the shot that you need to, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Just right there, Kim's giving one of the players grief for walking behind the games, as we were talking about earlier.
That's good. Everybody deserves their respect when they're playing their game.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
It's interesting, though, the difference between bowls and curling. If you ever watch curling, there's a whole lot of movement on the sides and behind, and it's really not as much of an issue. But for bowls, it's completely different. Oh, that's a great bowl there from Sydney.
Yeah, perfect draw right inside.
I'm really happy to have been here as well as at the juniors, as I can finally distinguish between Emma Boyd and Sydney Boyd.
No relation?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a relation or not. I would assume not, but Sydney from Saskatchewan and Emma from BC, whenever I saw them registering for the junior events, I'd always get them mixed up because that's the same last name. But now that I've actually met them and can put a face to a name, I can easily distinguish between the two.
That's right. Sydney trying to match her last bowl. Just getting wide.
Just a little wide, but that works.
Yeah, slipped on by.
Looking around, it's 9-2 for PCP over Manitoba next door in the women's triples. Ranked beside that, 6-5 Ontario over BCA in women's triples. Beside that, 4-4 between BCB and Manitoba A. I believe that's women's pairs. 8-3 BCA over Ontario, women's pairs. Down at the far end, 13-10 Quebec over Ontario, women's triples. That's pretty much all I can see for now.
Sometimes it's hard to distinguish the Manitoba, New Brunswick, and BC because they're all a version of yellow
Yep.
tags.
Just a different shade. Canadian geese flying overhead. (6-5) BCA over Ontario B men's pairs. In men's triples, Alberta A is up over Nova Scotia in men's triples. I can see Alberta has 12. I think Nova Scotia had 6. Yep. 9-3 Quebec over Ontario men's triples. I apologize, I'm not specifying between A and B for Ontario, but I'll let you look at the draw to figure that out for yourself.
I believe that's Ontario A. Ontario B is currently overplaying BCA, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right, and they're
Ontario
up
B is up 7-4 after 6.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney still holding on to that close shot. Just want Carolyn to draw in nicely.
And I think there might be another kicked ball at the back there. Yeah. Yeah, gotta be careful whenever you're in the head or even just on the green. Always look behind you before stepping back. Never know what might be behind you or what you're going to kick inadvertently.
Yeah, I'm coming in with a fair amount of weight.
Oh, that redirection really helped. That rub was just enough to get onto the jack, but I don't know if she really wanted to do that, though.
She's separated Sydney from the jack, which was really close, and now can't tell who's holding. The player's kind of standing around the bowl back there.
Mm-hmm. Not quite sure if she was looking to put in a back bowl or not, but with Sydney lying one, I'm sure she didn't mean to knock it quite that far.
It looks like Sydney just indicated that they're now down 2, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate result.
Sydney giving her a little bit of a hug there, saying, don't worry.
Knock it off.
Yeah.
Shake it off.
It's the one thing you got to be careful about when you're holding shot. You don't want to give it away.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do. You're trying to make a nice shot or even a protection shot or something like that, and you inadvertently give it away. But rule of thumb is you want to try your best not to give it away when you're actually holding. So it's just some unfortunate weight being played through the head there. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how she gets in there.
Mm-hmm.
She could come up through the center and try to pound her own through. Even those 3 on the side, if she plays some weight and pushes those in, it's going to be a interesting draw if she's able to draw right around.
Carolyn painted her fingernails green to match the Saskatchewan pride.
I'm pretty sure the whole team did, because I'm pretty sure Sydney and Lori have it as well.
Ninth inning lap.
Oh, Pat Bird up for the 9th inning lap. I asked him last night how he was doing, and he said, well, our team's not very good, but we're 4-0 sitting in first place. So that was quite the answer. Need a redirection here. Got it too flush, I think.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. She's looking for points to try to claw her way back, and gave away one.
Gets one. Seven ends in the book. Anything that'll disappear on its own?
No, right.
I hope. There it goes. Sorry, we're playing with the monitor trying to up the brightness, but it's already at 100, which is kind of disappointing because when the sun comes out, there's quite the glare, and it makes it tough for us to see what we're broadcasting.
Quite a short jack.
Yeah, that is incredibly short. This might be a rather difficult end to view.
Yeah, we're not quite that close.
Not that close. Oh. Just coming up short here. This is probably the shortest jack that I've seen played on this rink of any team. it can be really tricky to adjust to a short jack after playing mid-length, long length, bringing the mat up. So to now have the mat at the tee and play almost bare minimum. That's a great shot there from Vicky.
Tucked just behind the jack.
It's an interesting comment. Lori just asked Caroline to wipe the chalk off her bowl. Like she had to touch her last time and didn't take it off. That's what I call being a good sport.
Yep.
Don't want to leave that on. Although I don't think it's really going to matter, as her bowl is not quite at the hog line. If that gets pounded into the ditch, I'll be shocked.
Stranger things have happened.
Coming up well short on that one.
Looks like this is definitely working to Nova Scotia's advantage right now, playing also short jack.
Both players are getting pretty close to that center line, though, as they found the line. I got to commentate with Laura Seed a few times last year, and she's here again today, as Dave Anderson's the Ontario manager. But in front of us there, she has her binoculars again. I find that to be quite...
Yeah, she doesn't have to move too far. She just kind of walks up and down the sides, and she can see all the scores. Just whips out the binoculars to see.
Such a good idea.
Oh, here's a great shot here.
Beautiful
Sneaking
bowl.
in, taking shot. Beautiful.
Great shot there from Laurie. One game that I'd like to try playing someday is one bowl fours.
That would be interesting. For sure.
Don't give you an option to adjust. Just all natural skill at that point. Either you make it or you don't.
Yeah, just finding that ridge out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to hold.
Great weight. Sydney's standing there waiting for instructions from Carolyn, saying this is against us. Maybe if you come down to it, you can work on Laurie's bowl.
I'm really surprised that she's asked him to come down the other side, because she could easily trail that jack back to the other bowl.
Yeah, she doesn't think she can get around on her forehand, which I'm almost confident she could.
Yeah.
Carolyn's worried here, saying, "Whoa, slow down." But she's not even there.
It was an okay bowl, but I definitely don't think that's the right shot to be playing. You want to work on your shot bowl, because you can push it back there, and even if you do happen to trail the jack, it's not going towards that Nova Scotia bowl, because Nova Scotia is going to use Sydney's bowl to come in if at all possible.
Just on the inside. That's another thing that it's really beneficial to have coach and coach education, and maybe a instructional video here or there is just sort of tactics and strategy 101. Playing a higher percentage shot, as we're talking about here right now, it's a much safer shot for Saskatchewan to be playing on the non-ditch side, as chances of things going wrong are much less. But if they do play on that ditch side, it's more in Nova Scotia's favor.
Absolutely, and that's why Nova Scotia's playing that. Like, you can't blame them for doing that.
Well,
now they've lost that advantage.
Yeah, things have changed altogether here now. But percentage shots and odds of things going right versus things going wrong and what could happen, it's something that a lot of players don't have the experience to know that yet. And, no faults on them by any means, but it's something that you eventually do need to learn. What's the safer shot to be playing?
Yeah, 'cause now they have no choice but to come down the other side. You don't want to be bumping any of those Nova Scotia bowls closer.
And I've seen many games won and lost just simply because one team is playing the safer options while the other is playing the more risky shots and getting unlucky results or unfavorable results. Can't even really say unlucky if you make it and it's just, well, could have told you that was going to happen because that's the way it's set up.
Really, all Nova Scotia has to do is play inside Sydney's, try to push on that ball. Even if they catch the edge of Sydney's ball and shoots in. So
yeah, they could even work on Sydney's and just push it through and move the jack.
Playing some weight.
And she is. And
yeah, there you go.
there it is.
Nice little chip and trail behind for 2.
Tough situation to be in here now for Saskatchewan. There's not many back bowls to work with, so you're going to have to really either play some weight into Sydney's bowls. I think Carolyn might be looking to draw around that. That's going to be a tough shot to make.
Yeah. Probably your best bet is to play a little overweight, nothing crazy. Push on Sydney's bowls, split those 2 shot bowls. Got a fair amount of options. You just can't chip it and lose your bowl, because if you chip it to the left there, it could be down 4 or 5.
But with 3 bowls here, it might actually be a good idea for Carolyn to even be just through the head and get some position, get a back bowl.
That's right. Open it up with your first.
Mm-hmm.
Get some options, and then clean it up with your last 2.
Under no circumstance should she be short here.
She's not.
Definitely won't be. Well, she had weight to work on Sydney's, try to open it up, and that's
what you want.
well through the head, but, better behind than in front. Tricky to be Nova Scotia here right now. I think that's a good call there from Ruth. Get one back here. If the jack moves, it's coming right to my feet.
She got a little deeper. There you go.
Didn't quite come back as far to the center line as Ruth was hoping, but weight-wise, that was probably right in the area. Carolyn's tightening up the line here a little bit.
It looks closer. She might have something here.
Might have something.
Oh, just missing.
Just inside, but
that's a good bowl.
That's a good bowl. Good place to be. Anne's coming down to take a look. Now is when strategy really plays its part, as you're trying to think, what is your opponent going to do if they make it? What are they going to do? Where do I need to place my bowl? It gets very mentally draining.
That's right. See George walking down the edge of your screen there.
Yeah, and he's always on the move, always patrolling, making sure everything's going well. He's probably one of the most active umpires out there, as he's done all of the provincial playdowns here in BC, except the seniors, which he was playing in. So he's officiated for all the provincials except one, and then now he's here at the nationals doing the majors, which is a lengthy affair and no easy task.
Got a good bowl here from Saskatchewan, or from Nova Scotia. Just
get in position,
getting to the back. There's no need to disturb that head and give Carolyn anything to work with.
Well, this is going to be tough for Carolyn here. You either really need to blast at that to try to kill it, because if that goes straight back, you're down 3 or 4. So you need to send it way back, or just a very gentle tap to try to get second shot. And she's firing at it, I think.
She's got Sydney's.
Well, that
was
pretty good
result.
result.
Down 2, I think.
Yeah, I think it's still 2, Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Good effort.
Makes it
Didn't
15-4.
have many options in that head setup.
No. So we're actually halfway done, as they only play 16 ends in triples. I'm not entirely sure why it's only 16 ends for triples, as I feel like they can play 18 just as fast as fours does. I know it's one more bowl, but in triples the vice isn't at the head as much. What are your thoughts on that? I know I've seen many fours games where the vice will go and stand down there with the skip while the lead in second play, and then walk down to throw their bowl.
On my fours teams, whenever I play, my vice never stands up with the skip. Skip can take care of themselves. Usually they're the ones that are going to be the most prepared, or are doing the strategy and whatnot. I'd rather have my vice down there supporting the front end, keeping them in the game, being that cheerleader down at the end, moral support, all that kind of stuff. Because that front end is what can really make that fours game click.
Yep.
Right. The skips can only really do so much depending on what the front end gives them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I've never been a huge fan of having my Vice down there with me if I'm skipping.
I could not agree more with that. I think there's really not much need for the Vice to be down there with the skip. I know some people argue that, well, it's nice to see the head. I want to be able to see what's going on, and yeah, I get that. But really, you should be able to trust your skip that he or she can call the shot and tell you exactly what you need to do. I know that some people are more visual and like to be able to see it, but in my opinion, I don't think that that's really necessary. You should really be able to trust your skip that they say, I need a bowl here, then you do that. You shouldn't necessarily need to see
Excellent bowl
the
here.
whole setup and who's shot and who's not and whatnot.
Leads trading shots here. Yeah, and I really think the Vice should be that moral support. They're the second leader on that team,
Mhm.
or sometimes they're the first leader on that team. They're helping that front end understand what's going on, sometimes interpret what the skip wants if they have questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's just great to have that extra person on the front end helping everybody out.
Mm-hmm. Several years back, I played on a forest team with a bunch of other younger guys, and I was playing Vice, and there was a huge disconnect between the front end and the skip, so I was really trying to be that sort of middle voice of reason, trying to get them back working as a team, and it was a real challenge. I think that's why our team sort of blew up and didn't play very well. But yeah, absolutely, the Vice is really that moral support for the front end and can help connect the skip to the front end, and I think it's crucial that they're down with the lead in second and really supporting them. Not to mention it also just really slows the game down when you have the Vice standing down there with the skip.
It's true.
That adds an extra half hour, 45 minutes easily just from the Vice walking back and forth.
Yeah, you should be watching the head anyway and seeing how it's developing and where the bulls are landing.
Mm-hmm.
You should have a good idea of what's going on anyway. If it is a really critical whatever, they can get you to walk up and take a look at the head.
As always, if you have any questions or comments, reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, at BCB Bowls on Twitter, and at BCB Official on Facebook, or at Canadian Bowler to reach Daryl on Twitter. It'd be great to hear from you out there, regardless of whether we know you or not, or if you're just watching, have a few comments or a question. Makes it a lot more enjoyable when we can reach out to the viewers and have a little conversation, a little chit-chat. Even if you're from out of Canada, we'd love to hear from you. I know during the juniors we had a couple of viewers from South Africa watching.
Absolutely. We want to hear from our international Bulls friends, where you're watching, how you're watching, if you're enjoying the stream. We already know the commentary is really good, so we don't need to hear about that.
Looking around the ranks here next door, it's 12-2 now. BCB over Manitoba A in women's triples. A couple of ranks down, women's pairs, BCB is up 10-4 over Manitoba. 11-3 BCA over Ontario, women's pairs. 14-10 Quebec over Ontario down on the very far rink, women's triples. Can't really see much else. Men's triples 13-7 Alberta A over Quebec. No, sorry, Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia's got this jack surrounded right now. Sydney was playing through the head, trying to move that jack.
This mid-length jack seems to have confused some of the bowlers there. It's a bit more of a looser end. There's 4 bowls that are quite short. Chen is just behind there. That's a pretty good bowl. Pretty pleased with it.
Well, how the head's set up and seeing what Sydney was playing through the head, it's probably best that you get one back there, just in case the skip continues the trend of throwing through the head.
Mm-hmm.
Do that early, and you can decide what to do with your next 2 bowls.
Unfortunately, I don't know these two teams well enough to have made any predictions from the start. Normally at the start of each game I ask you, who do you think early on, early predictions, but I don't know these teams well enough to have made that call. At the halfway mark, it is looking a little one-sided as Nova Scotia has a 15-4 lead, but things can change, especially in the second half of a game. Well, she caught it, but I think she got the wrong edge.
Looks to be down 3. At least those 3 close ones. Just looking for a draw in.
Mm-hmm. A little inside here, I think.
Yeah. Looks like he's down 4. Carolyn's definitely playing some weight. Looks like she stretched that out.
Mm-hmm.
Almost.
Just about. Ruth's calling her around again. Play her forehand. There's quite a few lefties out in Nova Scotia. And just threw that. She's a southpaw. Must be something in the water.
Another Nova Scotia game going on there between Nova Scotia and Alberta. Steve Azanson is urging Steve Ogden just to trust him and make a shot.
Humor me, he said.
Close.
Ooh.
Oh, just catching the edge.
That's unfortunate. I don't think that got nearly as much of the bowl to make a difference as she was hoping for.
Unfortunately, when you're playing weight to heads like that, it can be really disastrous if you miss, especially when you were down 3 already.
0-0. One or the other.
Yeah.
$18-4. Starting the 10th end here.
Nova Scotia's looking. Ones either way is definitely within the budget going forward. So keep up the tight ends. If they can get points, great. Keep any of the damage to 1, and they'll be smooth sailing from here on in.
When we were streaming at the juniors, Andy Caldwell reached out to us on Facebook, or it might have been Twitter even. I think it was Facebook. As he's looking after the greens in Peterborough for the senior triples. And after his trip to Australia, he saw that they marked the center line, but they also marked the boundary lines. So that way you can tell really quickly if a bowl or a jack is out of bounds or not. And I thought, you know, it's great to do. So he asked me, should he be doing that at the seniors? And I said, yeah, absolutely. If you don't mind doing it, that's a great thought, great idea. So we shipped him out the chalk liner, and hopefully he'll be able to make that work. I know it's a lot of extra work to do that, because now instead of just the center line, now you're doing 2 more for each rink on top of that. But I think that would be a great practice to get in here in Canada, if we could have people marking not just the center line but the boundary lines as well. It can really speed up play. If you don't have any questions about is that out of bounds or is that not out of bounds, you can just look down at the line and, well, it's not touching it.
No, that's right. It's nice and quick. I would agree with that.
Takes a lot more time for the greenskeepers to do it, though. This year they've got the same sort of marking as they used last year in Alberta, I think. It's sort of a black... I don't know if it's titanium oxide or not. But it seems to work really well.
No, absolutely. It's nice. It makes it really, really quick. Saves a lot of time fiddling back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
Make it just coming up a little bit short.
Definitely not short on that one.
No. Well, she played the same amount of weight on her last and hit the shot pole and rolled in. So didn't quite make the adjustment to draw weight.
It's one thing I've noticed with a lot of players at the club level when you play is they tend to tell you how much short or heavy your bull was after you've crashed on a bull.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sure, I'm 3 feet past the jack, but I really would have been 20 feet if I hadn't crashed on that bull. So telling me I'm 3 feet heavy isn't actually accurate at all.
That's right.
Just squeaked in maybe for second.
Nova Scotia just looking to draw one close.
Kind of deceiving here. The scoreboard can be a little deceptive. It's not that Saskatchewan is really playing overly bad here, as they're lying 2 in the head right now. Just down to 1 now. So the shots are there, and they have been trying to hold their own, but Nova Scotia's been executing when they need to.
Yeah. And they took advantage of a few mistakes and a few ends to score some big points, which really boosted up their score right away. And then that just puts Saskatchewan on the catch-up mode, possibly trying to push for some shots. And
it's interesting how much that really changes if you're trailing the whole game, the different types of shots that you need to play then just to try to gain points, as opposed to if you're winning or have a big lead, then you don't need to take as many chances or change your style of play.
That head getting a little congested out in front. Cindy's not sure what to do. Just playing down into it. Might catch her own and push it in, which is an excellent shot. Oh, snuck
wow.
right by.
Snuck
What a
right
shot.
Through. What a beautiful bowl there from Sydney. That's going to be very tricky now for Nova Scotia to get at.
That's right, it's buried back there, and that's interesting port to get through.
They're set up well if they can find that port, though. You just need to touch Sydney's bowl, and it'll pop right back to a couple Nova Scotia bowls there waiting.
That's right.
But getting to it is a whole other story.
It may have actually improved that, given the edge on that Nova Scotia bowl out to the left.
It makes it a little bit of a wider path there now.
Yeah.
Bigger port.
See what Carolyn has here.
She definitely points her toes and aims her whole body to where she's going there on the mat. She was off on like a 45-degree angle almost, it looked like.
Well, the line was really great on this. Catching the edge. Now that might bury it.
Now that's going to be real tough. You need to play some swinger weight and maybe clear that out. If you get it square, you might even get Carolyn's onto Sydney's.
She's got the weight. She might just be a little wide on that side. It does tend to hold when you throw some weight. But she got hers closer.
That might make for a more useful wing bowl now. That might be on a real nice angle to Sydney's or the jack.
Carolyn can play a similar bowl. She can use that wing bowl and get it out of there and improve the head, but she's going to be wide and heavy.
Yeah, wide and back. Not a terrible place to be.
Nope, absolutely not. That's the right angle.
I've seen a lot of bowlers when they deliver, they sort of touch their elbow with their fingers a little bit, but Anne just places her whole palm over top of her elbow joint, which I don't think I've ever seen that.
I've only seen that a couple times with people. Sometimes there's certain reminders. Some people put their hand on their chest. Some people do certain things just to remind themselves either to keep their arm out, keep their body square, things like that. That it's just mental cues to say, this is what I need to do. Excellent bowl. She just needed to push it a little bit further through and trail.
Might have needed the inside rub a little more, but
Yeah.
Saskatchewan finally got another one here to get back in the positive column.
Yeah. $18-5 after 10.
Awfully quiet on the social media front. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time between trips to come up with more questions of the game, as that used to be one of my specialties last year every time I was streaming, was to ask a quick question. Well, I guess I do have one. How many lawn bowlers were there in Canada in 2015? And that's a stat you can actually go and find if you know where to look. We'll be releasing a report here, or a report, in I think a month and a half maybe, about new numbers for 2016. So right now, all that you can find online will be 2015. But how many lawn bowlers were there in Canada? 2 years ago? Any guesses?
I'm going to look ridiculous again if I make another guess. Mosley's just getting a little wide with her bowls.
It's interesting that they're still trying to figure out that side. I would have expected them to switch to the other hand, as it is a little more reliable, I think.
Absolutely. That one that's just slipping through, and the other one that's not just reaching.
Mm-hmm. Both taking relatively similar lines, though. Definitely not short on this one.
Just sliding through again. Both leads being fairly consistent in their weight.
You can see it takes sort of a funny wiggle once it gets down there past the jack, and it backs up a bit, and then dives a bit, and then backs up a bit, and
There we go.
then goes true.
Switching to the other side, see if it's any better. And shot drop.
Yeah, and it certainly is a lot better. Just goes to show, if you pick a good hand, you'll usually be able to play a pretty good bowl. Looks like John Siteman's been doing his research. He just sent us a message here for how many bowlers there are, or there were in Canada in 2015. Glad to see you know how to navigate our website there, John. You are correct, although I'm not going to broadcast the number yet. Wait another couple ends to see if we get any more guesses. How many bowlers were there in Canada? At least that we can track anyway. That's one thing that we've been working on for a little while, is how to make a really good database that we can track members.
Excellent ball here from
That's a
Sydney
beautiful
Boyd.
shot there from Sydney. But making a database is no easy task, because you always find things that you wish you would have added to it afterwards, so we want to make sure we know precisely what we want before we go and get it built or made.
That's right.
It's difficult because there's so many bowlers in Canada that we want to track. Are you a coach? Are you an umpire? How many years have you been bowling? Have you been to the nationals? Like, what kind of level of bowler are you? And that can make for potentially multiple entries if, you know, you're entered as an athlete and then as a coach and then as an umpire. So
That's right.
we want to make sure that we do it right rather than make a less useful one and then have to redo it. And then we also want to be able to track which club are you from, how many members are in that club, how many members are in your province, who has access to it. We might, you know, dish it out onto the province and then have the province dish it out to the club, so maybe your club administrator can log in and update that information.
Right. That's a good idea. And yeah, you want to make it right the first time. Don't have to keep tweaking it and reworking it just because you didn't quite understand what you were getting into in the first place.
And for bowls, it's also one issue that's not necessarily as prevalent in other sports, is people leaving and coming back. There are quite a few bowlers who used to bowl and then they stop because they're having a family or they're traveling or work or whatever, and then come back years later. So when you are making a database, some databases keep those entries forever. So would you just mark them as inactive, or do you delete them altogether and then add again?
Right. You can see on our camera right now the nice team camaraderie from Team Saskatchewan.
Yeah, they've been doing that the whole game.
Yeah.
They tend to really support each other well. We were talking a few days ago about how this can be such a family sport, and there are quite a few families here today. The Patuli clan has Harriet, Murray, John, and Michael, and the Roth family is also here today. There's Laurie, Sue, Tom, and Jim,
And Michelle.
and Michelle. That's right. Can't forget one of the daughters. That's fair.
So she's Michelle Whitehead now.
Yeah, that's right. I have expected to see Ron out here this week, but I haven't seen him. And then the Nova Scotia Foster clan. Tammy, Debbie, Jackie.
Yeah, they're big competitors out in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
They've also got families here supporting each other. I know you see some husbands, wives, fathers,
Mm-hmm.
mothers, all that great stuff. It's good to see that support.
Brothers and sisters. I'm thinking
Absolutely.
Fran and Al from
Yeah.
Saskatchewan. Really quite the family ordeal.
It is. And it's good to see, and it makes it fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get it. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. It's quicker that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Beetle.
Grant Wilkie being told, don't go in front of the games, go around.
Mm-hmm. Grant, of course, is a member of the development squad, and I guess
That's right.
not on the youth development squad this year, I don't think, but just the development squad.
Yes. I've worked with him a fair bit over the last little while.
Mhm.
Just going over game plans, what he's going to do for the under-25s, how he's going to play here with his team. He's asked a lot of great questions. And
I was gonna sneeze.
nice sneeze there. Yeah. Well saved.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and he's worked a lot with me, as has some of the other development squad members that are actually here today. David James Smith of Quebec and Robbie Law. They've made it's good use of my availability and contacting me on a regular basis.
And of course, if you do want to know more about the development squad, you can go over to the bullscanada.com website, and under Team Canada you can see the program and selection criteria and a few other useful links that can tell you all about our national team program. Being on the development squad opens up some doors for you. I believe that they get asked to go to camp, and potentially some development opportunities are there. I know last year a lot of the development squad members were asked to go to the North American Challenge.
That's right.
Whether that is always the case or not, I can't say, but it definitely does open a lot of doors for you being on the development squad as you get in touch with our coach of the youth and development squads, J.L. Fitzgerald, here beside me. But it gets you recognized and you're on the radar then to really potentially jump up to the senior squad level later on.
That's right. There are opportunities out there. We can't guarantee that the same opportunities are there every year, because there's some international tournaments that are available on odd years, and it's hit and miss. But when it's available and when there's opportunities out there, you can definitely jump up and grab them. And I know the North American Challenge, where we had a lot of youth and development squad players there, it was just an excellent opportunity, not only to play in their possibly first international game against the U.S., but also play with some of the senior squad members, because they were there, and get to know them, learn from them, get to train with them a little bit, and you just get that first taste of what the expectation is and what the game's like at a higher level.
Huge development opportunity, that's for sure. Unfortunately, the North American Challenge is only every other year.
It's true.
It was at the PIBC in Vancouver last year, so next year it'll be somewhere down in the States. I've heard rumors that it might be heading down to California, but those are just rumors, so I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I'm sure I'll be working with the U.S. in a few months to begin planning that event. And
you do see more opportunities come when there's another big event that's in line with things like the NIC, considering that the Commonwealth Games is next year as well. Obviously the senior squad members are gearing up to try to be selected for that, but with the amount of time that's needed to play in the Commonwealth Games, there may be some slots opening up for things like the NIC. So being on the Dev and Youth squad definitely gives you that leg up in trying to be selected for that kind of an event. And you get to work with me. I mean, that's just the number one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an unfortunate shot there. Nova Scotia had two really close and just bumped in Saskatchewan for possibly third or maybe second.
Definitely not what Vicky was hoping for, I'm sure. You know, I've had this question so many times, and there are so many different answers I could give to it, but a lot of people ask, you know, how come the winner of the majors doesn't just go and represent Canada at World Bowls? And there are so many reasons I can give for that, but short and sweet answer I'm going to say is that just because you won the nationals here doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great 5-man squad. At World Bowls, they send teams of 5, so you play singles and fours and then triples and pairs. So if you win the fours here, sure, you might be able to play fours at World Bowls potentially, but then you're going to have to be split up into triples and pairs later, and so whoever that 5th edition is, that might not be a good split. So just because you're excellent at fours, you might not be as good at triples or pairs, and that's something that we can't tell just based off of your performance here at majors. And another factor on top of that as well, at World Bowls, that's a grueling 2-week ordeal. The past few years it's been in the Southern Hemisphere, where you're playing in severe heat, long days. You start at 7 in the morning and you're often going until 9 at night, between practice and training and actually playing. And so to do that for 2 weeks, it's a lot harder to do than it is here, where we're only playing 2 games a day. There's a decent break. You're not starting as early in the morning and you're done much earlier at night. So sure, you might be able to perform here where it's shorter, but how will you fare over the course of 2 weeks playing 12-hour days, 14-hour days? And those are just a couple of the numerous reasons why it's not necessarily a good idea to just send the winners of the majors to an international event. And another issue on top of that is just team chemistry. Some people have strongly suggested that if you win, you should go, but how will you interact with other members of the team? That's something that's really tough to judge, tough to tell. Here, you might be playing really well with your team here, but if we throw in a couple other players, how will you interact with them? And so that's why things like training camp really come in handy, as we can start to mix and match and see how different players interact with each other, and who's a leader and who's a more team-focused member. And I could go on and on with that list, but that's just a couple of the many reasons why it's not quite as simple as you might think when sending a team to an international event.
And international play is definitely a lot different than...
Oh, it's tremendously different.
So, I mean, if you do have any questions, you can try to find a Bowls Canada rep. They'll give you some information on what's actually involved in international play. But for those that have actually been there, there's plenty around in every province. So, ask them, like, what was it like? How did you feel the first time that you went, and et cetera, and they'll give you a long list of really odd things that you might not think about when going overseas. So,
one example might be yesterday's game. We were talking about how we're assuming that New Brunswick plays on heavier greens, and they just couldn't find their weight. When you do play in the Southern Hemisphere, particularly New Zealand and Australia, greens are so much faster than here. Last year at the World Championships, they were in New Zealand. Green speed got up to 18 seconds in gusts of wind, and that is so much different than playing here on what is probably pretty close to 12-second greens. So sure, you might be a fantastic bowler here and win the event here on a 12-second green, but if we were to go and throw you down in New Zealand on a 19-second green with strong gusts of wind, that's something you may not have ever seen before and just can't adjust.
Well, that's absolutely true. So, you select players based on team chemistry, their positional play, and exactly how you think they're going to fare on certain levels of grain, whether we're playing in the UK or we're playing down in Australia or New Zealand. Those are huge swings in speed and grass and weather. UK would be overcast, cold, rainy at times. I think any Scotsman or Englishman will tell you that. And then you go down to Australia and New Zealand, it's going to be generally hot, really, really windy at times. And the green speeds are going to be, 15 to 18 seconds, and could be even higher if conditions allow it. So yeah, you're looking for the players that can adapt and play in those kind of conditions. So it's definitely not an easy thing to do.
And the members of the High Performance Committee are in fact volunteers, and there are 4 or 5 of them, so it is no easy task to try to select a team based off of all the applicants, and I definitely don't envy them their positions at all, because no matter what, you're making someone happy and several other people less happy with who you select, and I know they've been really working on making a clear, I shouldn't say policy, but way to determine how they select players. They've gone over again and again how to select players, and there's actually, I believe, a sheet that shows we'll give 10 to 20% of your ranking based off of this year's performance. We'll give another 10 to 20% based off of how your team chemistry is, another 10 to 20% based off this, that, and the other. So they've outlined it pretty clearly on how they're ranking people, and whether or not you agree with those rankings is one thing, but at least they're open about it so that you can tell. I know in years past it was really just sort of a guess as to who they were selecting and why. So they're really working to make that a more open process so that you can actually understand how and why some people are being selected.
Sydney still holding on to one shot. In this head, it's moved quite a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
Nova Scotia just looking to push her bowl out and trail that jack if possible. Just a little movement on that bowl would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Looks a little wide on this one.
Yeah, I think so. And so that was just one for Saskatchewan.
Alright.
Make it 18-7. Twelve ends down, 4 to go. And I guess I can shout out that answer before I forget. How many bowlers were there in Canada back in 2015? John Siteman pinned it with 13,490. And if you're curious how John found it, each year we come out with their annual report. So if you go under About Us and go to AGM and Reports, you'll be able to find the 2015-16 annual report, and then you'll see a whole lot of things of what we had planned, what we did, how things went. Lots of other neat little information, and sort of I think it's only 12 to 15 pages, sort of a summary of the year. And that's something that I would strongly recommend people check out each year, just to see what's going on. How did we do internationally? How did we do as a country? Just sort of your recap of the year.
There's a lot of stuff you can find if you just browse the website a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little delay in the game. Need one to get some water and possibly Kleenex. It is getting a little colder out here. You can see the jacket starting to come out.
Yeah, yeah.
It's overcast and the breeze is coming through, so I know here in the booth it's if it rains, we'll be stopping the stream.
Yeah, if it does rain, we will have to shut things down, but fingers crossed that'll just blow over. John Siteman's reaching out to us here on Facebook saying the Australian conditions are definitely a challenge with the higher speeds and winds. I was lucky enough to play at Tweed Heads Bowls Club, where the greens were running about 17 seconds and had hard wind gusts against the building. This could be a very short segment here. I'm starting to feel a few raindrops. We may have to shut things down here if this actually starts to pick up. I have no idea. We might need to...
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, it's raining here?
Yeah.
Yeah, if we could get maybe some sort of an umbrella or something just to cover this until we can shut things down.
I'll shut it.
Keep it going for now until Find an umbrella. Not good, not good.
Fortunately, we are getting a few raindrops here, so it
Yeah.
feels like we're going to have to shut things down prematurely. Can't risk having all this equipment get damaged due to rain.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that, folks. We'll pick back up again later if it does stop raining and blow over. We'll do our best to update you on social media about when we'll be back live, if we can be. Fingers crossed this will just blow over. Don't feel anything right now. I can definitely see it on the screen, though. Alright, well, we're going to shut it down for this rest of this game, and hopefully we can pick back up tomorrow. Sorry, folks.